Good afternoon and welcome to Superintendent Update. I am Mindy Burback, Communications Director for Lincoln Public Schools. This is the opportunity where we sit down with Interim Superintendent John Scretta and talk about issues that are important to you and our district. Today we are joined by Nola Derby-Bennett. She's the Director of Community Learning Centers here for Lincoln Public Schools. Welcome, Nola.
Thanks for having me.
And so we're here to talk about the community learning centers, and some people think that it's just before and after school care, but it is so much more. Dr. Scretta, how important is it that we have our community learning centers?
Yeah, so first of all, just welcome, Nola. It's great to have you joining us for this broadcast. The services and supports that our community learning centers offer are an absolutely critical program support for our Lincoln Public School students, and we have the benefit of having key partners who make those commitments as our lead agencies to support the efforts and the programming that our CLCs provide, which are essentially in about half of our 60 traditional school sites have community learning centers that offer said programming for our students. So just from the district level perspective, the opportunity for us to talk with Nola here today and share a little bit more about the work that community learning centers do is a great opportunity to educate our constituents and elevate the work across our community that happens through the CLCs. And as Lincoln Public Schools interim superintendent, it's really exciting for me to just highlight the work that CLCs do under Nola Derby-Bennett as our CLC's director and the integral community partnerships that support that work. Our CLCs in Lincoln are actually a national model of excellence, and I wanted to celebrate the fact that a couple of our Lincoln Public Schools board members, Kathy Danick and Barb Beyer, were actually benefited from the opportunity to present with NOLA at the recent NSBA National School Boards Association convention. The annual convention was held in Atlanta in March of this year, and NOLA, Kathy, and Barb presented some on the history of CLCs, which is really fascinating in terms of an evolution of school community partnerships. And we were invited to deliver that presentation, and it's a real credit to the leadership that NOLA has brought throughout Lincoln and our Lincoln Public School CLCs, and was an opportunity to really tell the story of CLCs in Lincoln, which we'll learn more about today. Also wanted to just celebrate and reinforce the exemplary programming through our CLCs to support our students. That's not me subjectively, JMO, just offering my opinion. I'm stating that based upon the fact that just last summer, in July, in Washington, D.C., a White House event celebrating the first ever Engage Every Student Summit and lifting up the work of community learning centers and community schools. And Lincoln's CLCs were one of the inaugural programs recognized for the exemplary level of school community partnership and the student outcomes that we've attained through the result of that programming. So it's just awesome to have you with us, Nola.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So there's so much that goes on during the school year, even during the summer. I mean, it doesn't stop when the school year ends. Tell us a little bit about that programming that you have during the school year and during the summer.
Right, yeah, so all of our 20 elementary schools offer CLC programming during the summer. Sometimes it's full day, sometimes students can do summer school during the morning and then join CLC for lunch and then the afternoon programming. This year we even have middle school programming that's going on, 6 weeks of free middle school programming that students can participate in. It happens during the afternoons from 1 to 3 every day. For 6 weeks, students can jump on the bus at their at their middle school and then ride to the camp location and then ride the bus back to their middle school location. So parents don't even need to worry about transportation. We have both art and athletic programming taking place for our middle school students this year. So that's really exciting sort of add-on that we've been doing. But yeah, our elementary schools do all kinds of extended learning opportunities throughout the summer to make sure that we're not experiencing any kind of summer slide for our students. Some of the really exciting programming that takes place during the summer are things like project-based learning. Last year, several of our middle school or our elementary school sites had project-based learning experiences around City Build, which is a national program that students sort of work on designing their own city. And so they were able to bring in people from the city planning department and transportation and utilities to give them some information about the things to think about when developing a community. And they used all recycled materials and built these huge models of their cities, and then they presented them to the folks from the building department, and they were able to just develop their communities and kind of give the reasons why they chose to develop the communities in the way that they did.
That's really great, just like interactive learning and having the simulated city build opportunity. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And you mentioned the city. I mean, we have a lot of great partners. We don't do this alone. This is not just an LPS thing. We have a lot of community agencies, a lot of community partners that wrap their arms around our families and our students and help us provide these opportunities. Talk about our community agencies that help us with this.
Right. So we partner with 9 different nonprofit organizations across our community who help us. They serve as lead agencies at our sites. So they run the day-to-day operations. They hire the staff. And then we work with them on vision and, bringing the community learning centers model to each school. They're so dedicated. I mean, some of those partners have been with us for 20 plus years. So it really has become a part of their mission to serve our students. And, they bring resources to the table. They advocate for this work. They bring a lot of other supports to our students. So, they don't just get the before and after school programming that is offered, but they also get all of the other resources that an organization, provides in the other parts of their work. So yeah, we have some really great partners, and they just really find value in the work that we do.
And that speaks a lot to our civic engagement, how we continue to build those relationships.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that we know is that a commitment to lifelong learning is kind of a cornerstone of the LPS mission statement, that we want students to be lifelong learners. And the reality is that out-of-school learning just does not happen without the commitments of community partners and the engagement of the community to support our students.
And so that kind of goes into, we just did our strategic plan and we outlined civic and family engagement as part of our strategic plan, but Nola, you also went through a strategic planning process. Talk to us a little bit about that, and what are the goals and the themes that came out of that process?
Yeah, so we had the really good fortune to partner with the Institute of Educational Leadership. The Coalition for Community Schools helped lead us through our community our strategic planning process, and we were able to identify goals, related to integration of our mission. So making sure that what we were doing aligned really closely with, the goals that LPS identified in the strategic plan that came out at exactly the same time. And then also, we identified goals around continued professional development for our after-school staff, not only the full-time folks who lead our CLCs, but also our part-time college students who work in our CLCs, and making sure that we're elevating the importance and the really intentional work of after-school led education. We also, of course, had some goals around data collection and making sure that we were doing appropriate evaluation, and really so that we can tell our story and so that we can continue to leverage additional funds to make sure that we can continue to do this work at all of the schools that we currently serve, and hopefully to continue to expand so that we can serve all of the students and families who need us.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a deep dive question possibly, but I think it's just kind of fascinating to contemplate, as you were referencing the summer programming, Nola, and putting that together, just trying to wrap our heads around the financial and resource commitments required to do that summer programming, and then the logistics involved when, like you were describing, 6 weeks of transportation provided by the district and supporting students getting to those programming locations, Can you just talk a little bit more about that? I'm just really immensely curious.
Yeah, so yes, it takes a lot of logistical organizational skills that some of the really amazing folks on my staff have that I probably lean on them to kind of help us with. We just really whiteboard it out and make sure that we're making sure that everybody's covered, that we've got all the club leaders in place that we need to have at all of the different sites, that we're mapping out field trips and which schools are going to which sites and locations for field trips each summer. Reserving all of the buses. We work with folks over at our transportation department who are amazing at helping us get all of the kids where they need to be. And then, we really work with each one of our sites individually to identify what are their goals for the summer. What is the principal at that school hope that those students are gathering and learning about over the summer. And then finding ways to get those students exposure to those activities each summer. So we sit down with each one of our sites and map it all out each January so that by June we're ready to go.
That's just a gargantuan effort, It's impressive just to kind of contemplate everyone who's got to be around the table or at the whiteboard, as you referenced, just kind of sketching that out and thinking through the programming. And also just, I want to express from the LPS perspective, the gratitude for, the district knowing that CLCs, while working on a strategic plan, we're not doing it as a one-off that's divergent from the work of the district, but really conscientious leadership on your part and everyone involved in supporting CLCs to ensure that that strategic plan has great alignment with those key areas. And I just think that really helps to complement and expand the partnership and extend upon the out-of-school learning that we know CLCs deliver.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, you have your own board that you operate under, and you're part of LPS, but you are operated by your own board, but it's also, we operate it kind of through the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal. That came about, about school safety after a couple of school shootings, and how can we wrap our arms around and provide safer environments for our students. And part of that was providing opportunities for students to be involved, and really just, providing that after and before school care, but also providing wraparound services for families. And so the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal was formed with the city. And so you also have that board, interlocal board too. And so you kind of have multiple bosses, if you will.
Yes, we answer to a lot of folks.
And all the community agencies.
That's right.
But your work is so important in providing that safe, secure environment. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what do you guys provide in that Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal?
Yeah, so we really think of the work that we do as proactive, meaning that we're getting ahead of any potential problems that students might find themselves in down the road. So the more that we can expose students to things that they have interest in that they, just maybe don't have the access to, or, just even having a space for young people to be in those hours after school or during the summer when supervision might not be available because parents are at work or, or haven't gotten home from work yet. And so we think about our work as really intentional about getting ahead of any potential problems. And also it's about creating relationships. So the better relationships that are developed, the more we can identify if something is starting to go wrong in a home or for a student, and we can get resources to that student and their families quickly so that we don't, so that a student doesn't find themselves in a place they didn't want to be in. And so, the work that we do with the Safe and Successful Kids really does align. We really work closely with the behavioral health folks, and we work closely with our school resource officers to make sure that we're serving kids all across that spectrum of where they might be.
You brought up, I've heard you say this before, you brought up the building relationships and that you are your staff are on the lookout for things because you are the ones who see the parents probably more so than teachers, and you're doing that handoff before and after school, and so you have built those relationships with families and how important that is.
Right, yeah, so, we have a warm handoff every single day, as students are being dropped off to us and as they're being picked up. We communicate with parents every single day, twice a day, when we're spending time with their children. And so, our teachers maybe only get to spend a couple of hours or an hour maybe even during parent-teacher conferences having communications with families. And so, you know, when things are going on, usually our staff are the first to know because they've got those relationships. They know who the coordinators are at each one of the schools. They might be the person that a parent comes to and asks for help when they don't know where else to go. So that's a big part of the work that we do, is just making sure that our coordinators all know how to develop really good relationships with our families and the students.
I want to end on something fun. You and your team have implemented some great athletic opportunities for our elementary kids, having CLC tournaments, whether it's in volleyball or soccer, maybe even basketball.
Basketball, yep.
So talk about how that all came about and the success you've seen with that.
Well, so during our strategic planning process, we had lots of different conversations with lots of different community stakeholders, students, families. And one of the things that we were hearing from our students and their families was that our kids are not having always the opportunities to participate in recreational sports. So, you know, they get to play lots of sports on the playground during recess, but, you know, for a variety of reasons, athletics is difficult to engage in for families, whether it's practice times after, you know, in the evenings, and for a second shift family, working family, that's really hard to get to.
And admittedly, just the resources required to participate in any number of formal youth sports activities can often be a huge obstacle to families. And so the CLC initiative is incredible.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, we were able to secure a 3-year grant from the Community Health Endowment. We started with soccer in the fall. And we had all 20 of our elementary schools had a soccer team, and they played. They either hosted a game at their school, or they traveled to a different school to play against another school. And we provided all the transportation. We provided all the equipment for that, so there was really like zero barrier for families. And then we did a tournament at the end of the soccer season, which was a ton of fun. Then we were able to play we had a short volleyball season that started in January. Our games were on Wednesdays, which ended up being a little bit of a weather barrier.
Happy to be, consistently.
And then we just finished up our basketball season. And like I said, all 20 of our elementary schools participated in all 3 of those sports. And so it was a really fun time. We have had some conversations about expanding to additional sports, to additional grades, because we know, like, we're seeing outcomes already in terms of youth fitness and just in terms of, students kind of engaging differently at school. One of the other really positive outcomes that we saw that we totally didn't intend was that our teachers got really into it. And so we had teachers who were coming to the games, cheering on their students, sitting in the stands with parents, building those relationships, having that additional time. And as a parent, like, seeing your child's classroom teacher sit in the stands and cheer for their students in their class is amazing, and just shows really the dedication and the love that our teachers in LPS have for the students who they teach. So we saw these really amazing experiences of the teachers and parents all standing in the stands together, like, at the end of the basketball tournament, celebrating the success of the students. And that was just a really amazing thing that we got to be a part of.
Those are amazing stories. That's also just another illustration, too, of the very purposeful alignment between the initiatives our CLCs undertake and commit to and the goals of the district around our strategic plan, which #GetInvolved is the LPS initiative around activities and athletics participation. And we know that students who engage earlier in those activities are more likely to stay engaged in activities and athletics at later ages, and the academic outcomes and on-time graduation rate for those students point to the success of that. So we're just really excited about the CLC Youth Sports Initiative.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you so much, Nola and John, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mindy.
And we will be back here in 2 weeks on Superintendent Updates.